mummy's with the maggots now.
Death has come to your little town, Sheriff.
Well, hi there.
Hello and welcome to Would You Die, the show where... What'd I do wrong? Why are you leaving me if I didn't do anything wrong? I don't understand. I thought you liked me. I'm Austin Torres.
And I'm Anneliese Petersmark.
And Anneliese, what did I do wrong?
Well, you murdered several people, and you're not that good at dancing.
Whoa. The truth hurts, okay?
I want everybody to know that's not even true. Austin won a dance competition when we were in college. That's real.
That's true. So what are we talking about today?
We are talking about Pearl, the
Woo!
prequel to X.
All the horror girlies love this movie.
Yeah, correct. And I am one of them.
Me too. This movie rules.
Yes, it does.
And I think it will be a fun conclusion to June Origins.
Yes, to Origin, the final chapter. This will be a great conclusion. If you've never seen Pearl, first of all, you should watch it. I feel like we say that every episode, but like you need to. Pearl is basically, like I said, the prequel to X, but the general story is that Pearl is a young girl who is trapped on her family's farm during the end of World War I in 1918. And she is attending to her father, who has become disabled because of the Spanish flu, and helping her mother run the farm now that all the farmhands have gone to the war. However, while she is doing that, she is simultaneously dreaming of life in the movies and being famous and getting off of her parents' farm.
Yeah.
And then there's murder and stuff.
And you know what the best part is?
What?
The alligator.
I knew you were going to say that.
Theta. Which that is a great name for an alligator.
It is a good name for an alligator, yeah.
Named after a popular actress at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Theta Barta, I think the last name is.
I believe you're correct.
Barta. I'm not going to lie. My familiarity with like pre-20s film is not super strong.
That's fair. Yeah.
Theta Bara. Bara.
Okay.
But yeah, she was like one of the first movie stars, and it makes sense why Pearl would be a fan.
Yeah, all of her animals are named after famous actors of the time.
Yeah.
And that's cool.
So what is your personal connection with this film?
So I saw this movie, unlike a lot of our movies, I saw this movie like pretty much when it came out. I didn't see it in theaters. I saw it when it came out on streaming, but I loved X. We knew that Pearl was going to be part of it like when X came out, right? Because they filmed simultaneously.
They filmed simultaneously, but they announced Pearl as like an after credit scene.
Okay,
in
yeah.
X.
So I knew when I saw X that Pearl was coming out, and I was kind of more excited for Pearl than I was for X, only because I feel like X did a really good job of making you curious about why Pearl was the way that she was. And I feel like this was a really, really, really good addition to explain why, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think there's also more excitement for Pearl just because X kind of came out of nowhere.
Yeah, that's fair.
Because Ty West, super cool dude. I think he's a great filmmaker. He had made a name for himself in the horror world, having done films like The House of the Devil and The Innkeepers.
Mm-hmm.
And he was kind of part of that. I don't think his films are quote-unquote mumblecore, but I guess he was part of that group of filmmakers. He plays a small little role in You're Next.
I need you to stop. What is mumblecore?
To be honest, I'm not sure.
But, like, what is that? You just said the word. What does that mean?
It's it's a film movement of the 2000s, mid 2000s.
I'm looking it up.
It's very independent film, super low budget, naturalistic acting and dialogue, sometimes barely a script.
So are we talking like
I would say it's like the natural evolution of films like Clerks.
I was literally gonna say, are we talking like Clerks, like
Yes.
that vibe?
Not but mid 2000s.
Right. Okay.
Like the people who grew up being inspired by movies like Clerks and El Mariachi.
Okay.
So it's horror, but
It don't have to be horror.
it's a lot of improv.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking like anything with like that ultra naturalistic dialogue where you're like you kind of have people talk. I guess that's where probably mumblecore comes from, but you have like people talking over each other or people sounding like they're kind of flubbing lines or whatever, but they're not actually flubbing lines. That's just like the natural pattern of speech. Kind of like,
I believe
like-
so. I could be wrong about this. This is
Okay.
not a subgenre I'm very familiar with, but I'm very familiar with the work of Ty West.
Makes sense. I'm looking up examples.
Yeah.
And yeah, okay. Now I feel like I don't know that I could describe it, but I have like an idea in my head of what it looks like, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
But Ty West kind of comes up with these guys. He makes films like House of the Devil, The Innkeepers.
Yeah.
Kind of makes his name in the horror world. Then he stops making films for a little bit to work on TV. He also makes a Western, which I haven't seen yet, but I want to. Anyways, Ty West just... He had his name in the horror world, but when he comes out with this X trilogy, the X trilogy are pretty big. I think that made him as mainstream director.
For sure.
I would say on the level of like what John Carpenter and Wes Craven would have been in the 80s.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially now.
Ty West makes it, the X trilogy kind of like puts him more on the mainstream map.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if normal people know who Ty West is quite yet.
I don't think they know who Ty West is, but I think people know Pearl.
I think so.
Specifically.
Mm-hmm. And the film world is very aware of Ty West, not just the horror community.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So at the very least, like, he's definitely opened up.
Yes. So what is your personal connection with Pearl, the X trilogy in general?
Before I had seen X, I haven't seen any of Ty West's films.
Oh, okay.
But I kind of knew who he was. The most I knew of him was, I guess I would have known him from VHS.
Right.
But I wouldn't have known at
That
the time.
was him. Yeah.
Yeah. That he was a part of that. Also, Radio Silence, Adam Wingard, I believe, was a part of it. So other up-and-coming masters of horror at that time.
Right.
And then I had seen You're Next, so I seen him, but like I said, I wouldn't have been like, that's Ty West. Not at that time.
Right.
But I knew the name, because let's be real, it's a great name for a filmmaker. And the trailers for X were coming out, and I'm like, oh, I like Jenna Ortega.
Yeah.
I like Brittany Snow. I want to see Brittany Snow in a horror movie.
Mm-hmm. I've literally only seen Brittany Snow in Pitch Perfect, other than, like, before this.
And Hairspray.
Oh, you're right, and Hairspray. I forgot she was in Hairspray.
Never me. But X was coming out, and on a whim, on like a random Wednesday night, I'm like, I'm gonna go see X. So I texted one of my best friends, Evan, and I don't know much about X. I just knew it was a horror movie about a group of kids going to some farm in Texas to film a porno.
Yeah.
I didn't quite know what I was getting into, but I knew that.
Mm-hmm.
My boy Evan didn't know that even. I said, hey, you want to go to the movies and see something fucked up with me? and Evan being the ultimate boy, he just like, yeah,
I was gonna say that's how you specifically as Austin Torres can get Evan to do anything. So that's not shocking to me.
So we go and see X, and it's a great movie.
Mm-hmm.
We loved it, but I had gotten a tip to stay for the credits.
Okay.
I must have seen it on Twitter or something. So I say, hey, we should stay for the credits. She goes, yeah, okay, cool, and we do. And then it's like the surprise trailer for Pearl.
Right.
And we're both like, oh, we gotta go see that.
Mm-hmm.
So a few months later, because X came out in March, I believe, Pearl came out in September of 2022.
Yeah.
Evan and I, and at this point, we roped in Doug. The three of us go opening night to go see Pearl.
Mm-hmm.
And shout outs to Evan and Doug.
Yep. Always. Friends of the pod forever.
Forever. And they were on the show, too.
Yeah. I do think that the setup and the marketing for Pearl was really interesting because it was so intrinsically tied to X. Like, obviously it's a prequel, but the fact that the first marketing you got for Pearl was in X was crazy. I think that's so fun.
And I also think Pearl was a bigger hit than X.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
There were so many Pearl costumes at Halloween.
Mm-hmm.
And there's some X outfits and cosplayers, but not like Pearl.
Not like Pearl. Pearl's so recognizable, too.
I would say as somebody who's not super into the horror genre, somebody who's very novice to it, whose most exposure to it comes through helping you guys with this podcast, that I knew Pearl, didn't know X, had no idea they were related.
Interesting.
I think that's the case for a lot of people, too.
I agree, yeah.
Because not only did X help Pearl get big, I just think Pearl just attracted more people
Pearl
that otherwise wouldn't have cared.
definitely surpassed the expectations, I think.
The expectations.
The expectations. And I also think, like, it helps that Pearl was a film that you could see without seeing X. You know what I mean? Like, you don't need to see X to know what's going on in Pearl. So a lot of people, like, when we're talking about theatrical release, a lot of people who saw X went to go see Pearl, and then they could drag their friends to it and be like, you don't need to see the first one. Come see this movie. And so, like, it got bigger and bigger and bigger.
Yeah.
In a way that X didn't have a chance to because, like you said, it was kind of out of nowhere in terms of, like, not a big director. Really only, like, one or two big names signed on to the actual, like, cast. Like, you had Jenna Ortega, you had Brittany Snow, who's, like, known but not, like, generally not in a starring role. Right. And then Mia Goth, who was kind of known for, like, period pieces up to this point. Like, she was really a standout performance in Emma, but had not done it, like, wasn't like a household name the way that I think this movie trilogy made her into. Right.
And I mean, I should probably save this story for the X episode, which we don't have planned, but come on, guys. We'll talk about it at some point. I didn't know Kid Cudi was an X.
Yeah.
And then I was doing an episode on X with friend of the pod, Gory Corey. Mm-hmm. And she's like, "Oh my God, Kid Cudi!" You know, like, I was so happy to see Kid Cudi on screen. I'm like, Kid Cudi's in the movie? Yeah. And she's like, "Do you not know who Kid Cudi is?" And I'm like, I guess I don't, but now I do.
Kid Cudi's kind of in, like, more than that. Like, he's done,
like, I knew kind of his music,
like, things, yeah.
But he's a big horror fan, and now he's, like, a good friend of Ty West, and I can pull this into Pearl because his real name is Scott Miscuddy. Mm-hmm. He's an executive producer on Pearl.
I didn't know that.
He helped.
I knew he was in X, but I didn't know he was an executive producer on Pearl. That's hilarious.
I mean, he helped to get, and I saw, like, Brittany Snow and Jenna Ortega are on, like, the special thanks for X, but he must have given a bunch of money, or he did something to really help Pearl get made. Yeah. And Ty West just directed Kid Cudi's new short film / music video.
Oh, really?
So they
I didn't know
collabed
that.
again.
That's really cool.
And Kiernan Shipka is going to be in that.
Nice. Cool.
Which we'll probably talk about her. Not this episode, but
at some point, yeah.
She's doing a lot with horror.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I like that Kid Cudi connection.
That is cool.
I'm looking at Ty West's Wikipedia right now, and he also directed a Kid Cudi music video.
That's what he just said.
That's crazy.
He
I'm
just-
sorry, I missed it. You can cut that all out, but I was just reading it.
As I was saying that, you were looking it up.
That's so funny because he was literally just like, and they collabed again.
See, I didn't know that.
Are you just looking it up to try to prove me wrong that there's no supernatural connection?
No, I'm just looking at his Wikipedia because I didn't.
I saw
Here's
you
the-
look up Ty West
I just was
supernatural.
curious.
You're so
But no,
annoying.
I have seen. I went and saw the movie You're Next in theaters.
That's a good
when I
movie.
was like a sophomore in high school.
I was about to say that came out in like 2014, I think.
So I did go see that, and I recognize who it is in that, but I didn't know who he was previous to this.
Right. But yeah, I've met Ty West at a horror convention. He's super cool.
That's awesome.
So, Ty West, if you're listening, you're super cool.
Okay.
So, something that's really fun about this month is with prequels. Like, every one of these episodes, with the exception of Prometheus, you get to talk about how these films, like, their historical settings.
Yeah.
And this is a completely different one from 1930s India
Yeah. Mhm.
and 1970s Italy.
Yes. This movie is obviously set in 1918, and a lot of those themes play into the movie. Big ones that I'm thinking just right off the bat are Pearl comes from a German family. They are a German immigrant family. Now, this is obviously pre-World War II. This is World War I, so they're not quite Nazis yet, but they are still on the losing side of this war, right? And so you have Pearl saying, hey, like, the Allies, like, France overtook, I don't remember what she says in the movie, and I'm not that good at World War I history to tell you what happened, but she's like, this might be the end of the war. And it did. This is 1918. The war ended in fall of 1918.
Mm-hmm.
And so her mom's response is, I don't want to hear about any more dead Germans.
Yeah.
So it's very much implied that the way that, and not even just implied because later in the movie she states it, the way that they are treated and the lack of help that they have on the farm is partially because a lot of their farmhands have gone to war, but the fact that they don't have any support the way that other farmers would during this time is due to the fact that they are German immigrants. So you have that element going on. You have the war, which is really central to the plot because Pearl's husband, she is married to Howard, is gone the whole movie. He shows up in the last scene because he is fighting in the war. And so that leads to a lot of Pearl being lonely and also like reaching out for other male affection and attention and that kind of stuff. And then the other big piece of historical context is the Spanish flu is happening. And that's probably the most central piece of the plot because even though it kind of features as a background motif, Pearl's father is implied to have gotten sick and be paralyzed for life because of this pandemic that's happening.
Mm-hmm.
And her mom has a very continued paranoia and health anxiety about her getting sick. Her mom doesn't leave the farm. She is only supposed to leave the farm with a mask on to get medicine and come home.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime she is caught doing something else, her mom freaks out. She has a hat on that she's never had on before, and her mom's like, you need to wash your hair. Anything is surrounded by this like paranoia of you might get sick.
Right.
And it's very obviously like topically relevant to the time that this period is set, or that this piece is set, but also to 2022 America, who was just going, or the world, who was just going through this global pandemic, and really less than a year from kind of resuming whatever normal life looks like after a global pandemic. And so, yeah, I think it was a really big jolt of recognition for the 2022 audiences with just the little details.
Right. Like wearing the masks.
The masks. And not only that, but like when she goes with the projectionist back to the farm and she sees a soldier passing by with a mask on. And he's like, do you know him? And she's like, I'm not sure. And he goes, yeah, you can't tell with anybody wearing these masks, which is something that like all of us said, you know?
Right.
Like so many, especially like so many teachers who taught online for a year came back and were like their kids came back and were like, do you recognize me? And they're like, I don't know, half your face is covered. Like it's stuff like that is, you know, obviously dialogue that fits so well into a 1918 world, but also into a 2022 world. That was definitely a jolt of recognition.
You want to know something about the projectionist?
I'd love to.
He is going to be in a pretty big July blockbuster.
Well, that's true. He is Superman.
Isn't that cool?
It is very cool. We were talking about that today, how he hasn't really, I mean, David Cornsweet, that's his name, right? Cornsweet, I don't know. But he really hasn't been in a ton. He's been in like as far as big movies go, he's been in like Pearl. He was like not background actor. What am I trying to say? Not an extra. No, he definitely was an extra. He had like lines, but he wasn't like a major role. But he was a role in Twisters.
Oh, supporting.
Thank you.
That's him.
That's the word I was looking for.
He's part of Anthony Ramos' crew.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yep. And then now this. So it's very cool.
Everyone starts in horror.
Real.
I mean, he's probably done stuff before Pearl, but still.
He has done stuff before Pearl, but like that was his first big one, right?
It was, and it's the stuff that he did before Pearl is like very limited.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, pretty cool.
Yeah. So, Jorigins, let's get into it.
Yes.
Okay. I thought maybe you'd have something to say, but that's all right.
Well, Pearl is interesting because of all of these films, this is the one that, like, as a prequel, there is from 79 to 2012 was over 20-year difference, over 30-year difference between Alien and Prometheus.
Right.
Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom to Raiders from 81 to 84. That's a 3-year difference.
The first Omen is
the biggest, 76 to 2024.
For sure, yeah.
I ain't doing that math. But
a lot.
Yeah.
It's like 50 years.
Almost, at least,
it's
yeah.
48.
So, there you go. But this is the shortest amount of time because it's from March to September.
Yeah, it is. And I think...
it helps that it was shot back to back.
I was going to say, I think it lends itself really well to a lot of parallels and also, like, you know, when you are filming with the purpose of having a prequel, which none of these other ones I don't think were. Maybe Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, but I don't even think that's true. I don't know that they had a prequel in mind when they decided to make the first one.
No, that series, they just kind of took it one by one.
Right. So when you do have a starting and an ending point in mind, you don't have to spend a lot of time like making sure that your prequel stuff either makes sense or, in the case of I think like the first Omen, if you're gonna retcon something, it better be fucking good. You know what I mean? Which I think it was. But in this case, they didn't have to retcon anything because they already had this plan. They already had this started. So I think a lot of things are really cool parallels between this and X. First of all, just some of the smaller things. You have some lines that are very similar or just taken directly from it. Like most notably probably, well, maybe not most notably, but the most like taken 1-to-1 is probably It'll Be Our Little Secret, which Pearl says to Mitzi. Is that it? Mitzi at the end of the movie, and appears in X as well.
And also, there's a guy in the background of when they're in the town wearing like one of those things that like the church people, not church people, but like the doomsdayers, you know what I'm
yeah.
saying? And he's wearing something that says, "I will not accept a life
I didn't
don't
notice
deserve."
that. That's crazy. Really?
Something, yeah, I'm pretty
like
sure
one
it's
of
that
those
line.
signs. I think you're right, but yeah, I didn't really put that together. That's so funny. I mean, it's not funny. It's fucked up, but it's great. As far as bigger things, there's a lot of like deepening of the themes because you
That
get
X Factor. That's another line. I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, you're right. The X Factor.
The dance judge says that.
Yeah. But there's a lot of deepening of the themes because you get to see all of these different themes play for Pearl at the end of her life, and then you get to see how they've haunted her this whole time. So this idea of like youth versus aging. She is obsessed with vanity and beauty, and she is horrified by the fact that she is aging in X. And then in this one, she is very much like always wearing her mother's fancy dresses and making sure that she is looking beautiful and wearing bows, and like, I just want to be pretty and loved and sought attention to. And then obviously you have like the sexual repression, right? Like,
right.
The whole of X is centered and themed around the fact that Pearl wants to feel wanted the way that Maxine is wanted, especially as somebody who looks like Maxine. Then we get to see her backstory and realize that like it's kind of the same her whole life. She has this husband, Howard, who is described throughout as like nothing but this wonderful man. You know what I mean? Very sweet, very kind to her and to everybody else. But because he is gone and he is not able to pay her the attention that she wants,
right,
she immediately goes and seeks it other places, including with the Scarecrow.
Especially with the Scarecrow.
She's married.
I'm married! What'd I do wrong?
Stop. Your Pearl impression is crazy. Jeremy and I were watching these TikToks. This is a complete aside, but we were watching these TikToks the other day that are like when you see somebody acting and then you realize that they're actually British and they're like surprise British. And usually it's like stereotypical, like, I live a hard life and I grew up in the streets, and then they're like a very posh British actor. But I was like, listen, you have to hear Mia Goth's real voice. Like, I need you to understand that this is not what she sounds like at all. She's this very mousy, posh British woman.
It's insane.
Sorry. Again, tangents. Love tangents. But like, thinking of other themes, her dreams of stardom, they never really go away. She doesn't really lose them. I mean, maybe she loses the idea that she would be famous or successful or whatever, but really the root cause of her need to be famous is her need to be wanted and her need to be loved by everyone. Like, that is what she wants out of life. More even than I think her escapism from the farm. Like, she wants to be like well loved.
Right.
And we see that when she is young in Pearl, and then again, same thing. We see that when she is older through her just like need to be wanted the way that Maxine is. So, yeah.
Because she thought she had that X factor.
Exactly.
That she sees in Maxine. That everyone else sees in Maxine.
Yeah. It's like, it makes for a hard watch when you watch her dance at the end of the movie, because like, one thing that I enjoyed about this movie is that they kind of showed that she wasn't that talented, if that makes sense. She was not that special. Not that she was, bad at the type of dancing that she was doing and the type of dancing that was popular or prevalent at the time, but just that she wasn't special. She did not have the X factor.
She had delusions of grandeur, I think the saying is.
Yes. And I think it would have been kind of easy to be like, to take, well, I don't know if it is harsher or less harsh, but the idea that there are lots of talented people who never make it is really prevalent in our society. And I think it would have been easy to take maybe a gentler approach and say like, well, yeah, she's really talented, but like she's just not like what we're looking for or whatever. And they do like say that, but realistically, we know she doesn't have it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a really harsh reality that she gets faced with, and we as the audience gets faced with. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It's really easy to be like, well, but like maybe one day she could, you know? And like because this is a prequel, we know she wouldn't, but still. But because they don't give you that option, they don't give you the option. She's aggressively mediocre. She's like a lot of other people in showbiz.
Mm-hmm.
It's a harder pill to swallow, and I think a better one.
Do you think Pearl is a likable character?
That's really hard for me because like if I knew her in real life, no, and not just for the killing, but because she's like insufferable. But I think because we get like her monologue changes a lot of things for me about her.
Mm-hmm.
And also like with the additional context of X where you can see her longing, like you don't necessarily feel as sympathetic for her in X at all because she's already kind of warped and manipulated by this darkness.
Mm-hmm.
But, and you kind of more find just her a creepy old lady. But because you get to see like her monologue and you see her like know that there's something wrong with her. She's like, I know that there's this darkness in me, but I could be happy if it's just us. Like, please don't leave. Please listen to me. Please accept me for who I am. I don't know that she's likable, but I pity her.
Yeah, I don't think she's likable.
Okay.
It's easy for me. I got a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
After her big monologue, she congratulates Mitzi, who is her sister-in-law,
Mm-hmm.
Howard's sister. Sister-in-laws have to stick together.
Yep.
She congratulates Mitzi on getting the part.
Mm-hmm.
And Mitzi's like, no, I didn't get it. And Pearl says, don't lie to me. And Mitzi gets uncomfortable. And then she's like, okay, yeah, I got whatever. Yeah. Do you think Mitzi actually got the part? Or did she just say that because she was scared and thought Pearl would hurt her?
I thought about this too this morning. I don't know that I know because yeah, I also was like, I don't think she got the part at first because she was so insistent. She was like, I really didn't get the part. But yeah, no, I don't think so, only because I don't think Mitzi ever thought she was going to get the part. I think Mitzi's very comfortable with her life. Mm-hmm. And I think she was very much like, I'm going to this audition as like a little act of rebellion. I'm going to sneak out, especially like in the midst of the Spanish flu when everybody is like, no, you need to stay indoors. Getting to go somewhere and sneak somewhere out is like a novel thing. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And so I don't know that she even really particularly tried that hard to get the part.
I don't think she got it either,
Mm-hmm.
which is interesting because Pearl says this to Superman earlier in the movie, but I feel very deeply I can tell these things.
Yeah.
But I think just like her dancing, which she's wrong about, her having that X factor, which she's wrong about, her being a star, which she's wrong about. I think she's full of it.
No, I think she's
very arrogant.
I think she gives very much like, I'm an empath. You know what I mean? Like, that's the vibe that she would have if she was in 2024.
Rest in peace, Pearl. You would have loved TikTok.
Rest in peace, Pearl. You would have loved doing TikTok dances for the girlies. Yeah, no.
Yeah, she was just born in the wrong era.
Really?
She could have gotten famous.
Yeah.
Just not in 1918.
Yeah.
And that's why she's a killer.
Right. But I don't think Mitzi got the part.
No, I don't.
I think
really
Mitzi
think so
just
either.
started agreeing with Pearl to get out of that situation.
Yeah.
But I think Pearl, after going on that monologue, I think she was going to kill Mitzi no matter what.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why I'm like, I don't have sympathy for Pearl.
I mean, that's fair.
I love the monologue.
I don't necessarily have sympathy for Pearl. She's a murderer. But I mean, like, in terms
and she
of,
likes
like,
murder.
if she wasn't a murderer, I'd probably have sympathy for her, even though I find her grating regardless. Well, I think there are likable murderers in these movies.
Well,
I think
here's the thing.
pretending there's not is crazy.
No. I mean, I've seen Scream. I get it, but my
I think that's the same thing.
but my thing is like, she only has the one audition, and gets rejected, has that meltdown, and like gives up. I mean, yes, she did murder people beforehand, and that's a part of it, I guess.
Well, that's my thing. Is like people
She could have
are
just
always
left
like,
that farm.
but people
Who
are
would've
always
known?
like, this is a really dramatic overreaction when she like loses the park. I'm like, she killed people to do this. She killed her dad to do this. She was like, bye, Dad.
And then she goes back. She should have just left.
That's
Who would have
fair.
known? It's 1918.
That's fair.
They would have just blamed it on like Jack the Ripper.
Yeah, I guess.
Like, oh my God, Jack the Ripper must have like
Jack
came
the
from
Li-
London to.
I was like, Jack the Ripper was way before this, but that's
Oh.
fine.
Then they would have done something Texan about it, like
Sure.
the Big Bob Butcher.
The Big Bob Butcher.
Yeah, the Texas
Austin,
tickler.
I think they would have blamed people of color, and I think you know that.
But they wouldn't have blamed Pearl, is what I'm saying. She could have
fair.
just left, and they would have been like, "Oh, they got her too."
That's true.
All I'm saying is, listen, the
Hey.
arts is hard.
I have a question about when she goes back.
Yeah.
Do you guys think she ate the pig? Do you think she ate the maggot pig?
No, because it was still there.
It was still there when Howard gets
It was
back
still, I'm not
again.
saying she would have ate all of it, though. Do you think she had a serving of maggot pig?
I don't, because I think in her warped mind, she her parents are having it.
Yeah, I think that's why like everything is moldy at the end. I think she just like made a nice dinner for her parents and then went about her farm chores.
Howard's crazy. He's not even in this movie.
I know, but like he shows up and she's like, "Welcome home," and he's like, "Guess I live here now." He
And then,
could have
like-
gone back to his mom.
And then when you watch X after it, he's just like, "I love you so much. I'll do it." I know.
Yeah, that's been made very clear.
She killed your sister,
That's
and
true.
you're like, "But she's hot."
And she's like, not even. Here's the thing. Sorry. I don't mean to say that because that's terrible. But what I was trying to say is I do think they managed to make Mia Goth, who is a very beautiful woman and is very like sexy and stuff as Maxine,
Yeah.
into like a very homely version of herself, which I find interesting because like it's not like with Pearl in X where she has a bunch of prosthetics on. She's just like
Right.
herself with like a little bit different makeup and stuff that's not as flattering to her face. And I do think that's really like they did a really good job of that.
There's also a lot of like, because Mia Goth kills it in this movie. There's also like a lot of shots with like snot, and like it's not very flattering.
No.
Which is the point, but still.
Yeah.
Do you want to do the transition?
Oh my God. Okay. So I thought you weren't done.
Oh, I was.
Okay.
We just stared at each other for 30 minutes.
It was not 30 minutes. That's really dramatic. That being said, likable or not, I do think that all of that gives emotional context to Pearl's character in the original movie. She's not just like this jealous old lady because she's jealous and for jealousy's sake. She is jealous because of the fact that in her very warped mind, that should have been her.
Right.
So then there are obviously like very obvious narrative echoes. I mean, there's killings with a pitchfork,
Noise.
the axe, which is like
Noise.
on the literal front cover of the original poster.
Mm-hmm.
Pearl kills out of rejection and abandonment.
Noise.
she like exclusively, it's not like she's just this crazy like going on a killing spree. She'll only kill these people after they reject her. Like anybody who rejects her advances, she's on. Anybody who she feels is abandoning her, she's on. Anybody who treats her like she's silly or less than or just not worth what she believes that she is owed.
let's go.
See, this is the thing, is you can't hate Pearl. She is, like, actively feeding that alligator, like, everything.
Well, listen, that it's an alligator.
Yeah, but
She can feed herself.
she's getting good food, man.
That's people.
Yeah. And she probably fucking loves it.
And Goose.
And Goose.
Mr. Goose.
People and Goose.
What are you doing here, Mr. Goose? She's so mad.
What a way to start a movie.
Truly.
We saw that, and I said, why? And Anneliese just looked at me and simply said, because she's crazy.
Was I wrong? Okay.
What'd I do wrong? A lot of things, Pearl.
A lot of, what'd I do wrong? I thought you liked me! She's so good. I love Mia Goth. Anyway.
That's my favorite line reading.
Mm-hmm.
If you couldn't tell.
I think about that line reading every time when Jeremy leaves the house and I don't want him to. He's just like, why are you leaving? What'd I do wrong? I thought you liked me.
So you guys play a game while watching the movie
Yes.
to guess which quote I'm going to do. Did anyone win?
I don't think so. What did you say? You said something pretty early.
I did,
It
but
was
There
When
were
you-
other contenders.
I
I
I'll say
think
that.
it was really early. It was like the scene with
The
goose
cow.
and the cow. It was like
Yeah.
she's talking to the cow, and then the goose comes in, and she's like, murder. But it was this.
My
I can't
get
remember
out
what
of
it is.
here or something.
I think so, or it's something like where she's like, I will make it out of here one day or something.
Yeah. And then
But she says it all wistfully. It's very like Wizard of Oz.
the whole
Well,
movie.
we
is
should
right.
get into that later.
Yeah.
Put a pin on that.
And we
Yeah.
will. But so my guess was I'm a star.
Yeah,
The
I thought
show
about
where
that one.
I'm a star. I thought that's what you were going to say.
I thought about that one, but I had to
Yeah.
go with my heart.
Yeah.
What I do wrong?
I had to go with my heart.
And I got to say about the I'm a star part, which is perfect. I've seen Christmas tree, like Christmas tree stars, and they have Pearl's face that's
I've
screaming,
seen
and
that.
then
Our
I'm a
friends,
star.
our friends John and Lindsay had Pearl on top of their Christmas tree.
Yeah.
Yep. Mhm.
And there's a TikTok I saw. It was when the movie came out. It was like me when I see Emma Stone. It's just like Emma Stone, but because. And then there's pictures of Emma Stone, and you're just hearing Emma, I'm a star.
It's so funny. I've never thought it sounded like that, but now I do.
Now I can't unhear it.
That's so good.
So every time I see Emma Stone, so I watched La La Land a couple like last weekend, and the whole time like Emma
Stone.
Stone.
It's so funny.
And Crazy Stupid Love.
Yeah, you did watch that. You told me.
Emma Stone. So,
Well, anyway.
did this movie have a cultural impact?
Yeah. So,
Halloween of 2022 would confirm.
yes. So, big things. Yeah. I mean, like, everybody dressed up as Pearl for Halloween the year after. Like, there were group costumes where people were like Pearl and then Maxine from like
Yeah.
with the overalls.
Mhm.
And I was like, that's fucking cool. Anyway,
And then like Pearl and the Projectionist, I think, were popular.
Pearl and the Scarecrow were big.
Yeah,
Yep.
couples costumes.
Yep. So lots of that.
I'm just saying, if someone did a couple's costume of like Pearl and the Projectionist, I could third wheel as the alligator.
I knew you were gonna say so funny. I'll be Mr. Goose.
Oh, rest in
Jeremy
peace.
gets to be Pearl. You can be the alligator, and I'll be Mr. Goose.
Okay.
And I'll just like walk around, and he can just pretend to like stab me with a pitchfork. We have lots of bows in this house. We can make it work. I'll find a red dress. But so Jeremy just touched on it like a few minutes ago. But big thing with this movie is it's very heavily stylized to look like a movie, ironically from the 1930s, which is funny because that's not when this movie was set, but
Right.
it is when a lot of people associate old Hollywood. And so not just with like the cornfields and the scarecrow, like those are all obvious parallels, right? But with
Right.
the music, with the way that she speaks, even the style of the movie theater is very much akin to what we would see in the 30s and 40s, not
Right.
necessarily the 1910s.
And it's a very colorful film.
Yes.
It's a very
Very Technicolor reminiscent.
right, exactly. It's shot like, because X was grimy, X was Texas Chainsaw.
Yeah.
This was pretty. This was like a spectacular.
Yes. And like to the point where like the blood is so vibrant that it doesn't even look real. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like especially with the hatchet when she, or not even, the hatchet when
Yeah,
she is
when
going
she's
after
Cutting up Mitzi.
cutting up Mitzi, with the pitchfork when she is stabbing the projectionist, like very, very bright.
Although that head chop, that looks
yeah.
that looks too real.
Oh yeah, it's
I was
definitely like still, it combines very modern effects with the coloring and stylizing of like Technicolor films, which I find interesting. And
I was like, yuck, and then the alligator ate, and I was like, yay.
so lots of movies very quickly followed suit with this like heavy stylized aesthetic. And I don't necessarily know that you can say, because a lot of these movies were like in production when Pearl came out. So I don't know that you can necessarily be like, Pearl's the reason. But Pearl was definitely one of the leaders of the trend of it.
Yeah.
For example, so lots of other movies were following suit from Pearl. Pearl's not the first one to do this. Barbarian came out before Pearl. But
around the same time, so they're like sisters,
like very
in that
similar.
regard.
Yeah, I knew they were like the same year. They were like within months of each other, right?
Yeah, because Barbarian was August, Pearl was September.
I was gonna say I knew they were very close, but I couldn't remember which one came out first.
I think they would have been in theaters at the same time. Like you could have done that double feature.
That's true. So those were two very highly stylized movies that kind of led into like Skinamarink and Infinity Pool and other really stylized horror that's come out in the last couple years. I know there's other examples, but I can't think of any off the top of my head or when I was doing my research this morning.
I think X probably helped lead this charge too, because X is very stylized as well.
For sure.
Mia Goth.
Mia Goth. So yeah, I mean Mia Goth is just in and of herself, like elevating her to like mainstream status. Really.
Yeah, because now she's working with Guillermo.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And she was in an Infinity Pool.
This is like the 5th time that we've brought up the new Frankenstein movie coming out, but
We
I'm
like
still very
Guillermo.
excited. Don't talk to me about it. But
We don't like Netflix.
but we like Guillermo.
We like Guillermo.
I would trust him with my life.
He wouldn't do anything wrong. We would like him.
Yeah, we would like him.
What did Netflix do wrong? Everything.
What did Netflix do wrong? Why are we leaving Netflix? Because they did everything wrong. Why are we coming back? Guillermo del Toro. This is also the cultural impact that this has is something that I like to call elevated but goopy, which is exactly what I said earlier. It's the idea that we're combining these modern horror effects with kind of crazy like stylistic choices, which I really enjoy. I think it's fun.
Big character themes.
Explain, elaborate. Because like yes, but like elaborate.
Like it's not just elevated but goopy. It's not just having these effects and having the goop, but having the characters be more complex and nuanced than like the slashers of the 80s.
Oh yeah, absolutely. It is having these slasher movies with the morals of
like the Hereditary.
Yeah, having the morals. Like we talked a few weeks ago about, I can't remember what movie it was. Maybe it was The First Omen, where we talked about how like slashers generally are just kind of like, we're here to have a good time, you know? And Pearl's not that. Pearl is a slasher that also has the heart of another movie.
And X, I would say the same of.
Yeah, absolutely. This whole trilogy, I would really attribute that to.
So, elevated but goopy.
Elevated but goopy.
Actually, you want to get down to defeat the Huns?
With our superlatives?
Yeah.
Absolutely. Who would you save?
Mr. Goose. Hong Kong.
Dang, okay. So I guess the alligator can't eat. I would say
Well, not the only thing the alligator eats.
that's fair.
But Mr. Goose, he just walks into the movie. Hi, I'm Mr. Goose, and I'm so happy. And then Pearl's like, nah, this is my movie. Chink. And I'm like, I'm so sad. And then she feeds him to Theta. I'm like, hooray. But there's other things to feed Theta.
That's fair. I would save the dad.
Oh, that's cool too.
Yeah, he just kind of like learns all in like 20 minutes. He's like, not only is my daughter like actively trying to kill me, but also my wife resents me for getting sick, which is not my fault. And now I'm just in this house alone with my dead wife while my daughter goes off and does who the fuck knows what.
Superman.
And then she
does Superman.
Well, yes. And then she comes back and she kills me because she's sorry, but she can't take care of me. She has to go be in a church play.
She almost feeds him to Theta at one point.
She does.
Also.
He just he's got it rough. Like, he got the Spanish flu, and then this happened to him, and then it gets worse from there.
And then, like, he got to watch a chick fight, and it wasn't even hot. It was more sad.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
There's also his daughter. I don't know.
And his wife.
And he also, like, has to just be there while his daughter bathes in front of him a lot, which is probably weird.
Yeah, especially in 1918 times.
Yeah.
When you only saw ankle.
It's fair. Okay.
But he got to see an alligator in the last week of his life. That's pretty cool.
That's true, I guess.
You gotta find the silver linings.
Oh my god, okay.
Yeah, I bet in those moments he was like, this sucks. That alligator was pretty fucking sweet.
That's how I would be.
Good for you, Austin. What was your favorite scare?
I like the split screen stuff at the end when she's
Yeah.
preparing the final meal, and then when she's, cutting up body parts, and you're really getting into the gore. It's the goriest in the film.
Yeah, it really is.
And then Theta, the alligator, is like, nom nom time, and I'm like, hooray.
True.
What was your favorite scare?
I stole Jeremy's, but my favorite scare is when she looks out into the quote-unquote audience and everybody's clapping and her family is there and they're clapping, and then her mom takes off the mask and she's got that crazy fucking smile.
Yeah.
That's pretty good.
Who is your Tony Todd Award winner for movie MVP?
I gave it to Ty West and Mia Goth for the screenplay.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Okay. It is a very good screenplay, in my opinion.
I really like it. I think it's got some standout lines and some really good thoughts.
Nice.
Yeah. What about you?
Theta.
You cannot give every award to the alligator.
Why not? It's my show.
That's fair.
She's a star.
All right. Is this score better than Jaws? Theta has the X factor.
But I don't think she was involved in the composing process of this film.
Probably not.
I would say no.
Yeah, I don't think so. It is very like 30s and 40s Hollywood, which really fits with the aesthetic of the film. Big sweeping strings, which is not something you hear a lot. It's very much more brass heavy these days. And it was done by Timothy Williams and Tyler Bates. They're like frequent collaborators. They both did Guardians of the Galaxy.
Yeah, I know their name. Like they do a lot of these big projects.
Yeah, Timothy Williams done like Get Out and Deadpool 2 and like Wild Horses. He also did Guardians of the Galaxy 2. And Tyler Bates has done a lot of Zack Schneider. So he did like Dawn of the Dead, 300. He's also done Grindhouse and Halloween, the Rob Zombies, Halloween 2. Back to Zack Schneider, he's done Watchmen and Sucker Punch. He obviously did Guardians of the Galaxy with Timothy Williams. So they're very used to like big, like blockbuster type movies.
Yeah.
Which I think lends really well to, hey, we need a big sweeping score for this like 30s Technicolor vibes
Right.
movie. But it also lends to building tension really well, because a lot of those action movies, a lot of those big blockbusters, you need to build that tension. So I think they did a really good job of like driving the balance between the two.
Yeah, they don't really use modern techniques. They use techniques from like the 30s and the 40s. Like I feel like this score would feel at home. Like if you're listening to scores of that time, you could sneak in the Pearl soundtrack and you wouldn't really be like, oh, the vibes changed.
And I think the cool thing is they didn't necessarily lean too much in like, oh my gosh, this is a horror soundtrack, which like it is, and you can feel those elements, but it feels very much the way that, you know how sometimes people nowadays will just take any random old song and they'll just like put it to like a slightly creepy video, and everybody's like, this song gives me the creeps, and it's like, yeah, because it's horror. They kind of just did that. They made this really beautiful like
Tiny Tim Tiptoe Through the Tulips in Insidious.
That's probably like the OG example of that.
Or like Run Rabbit and Get Out.
Yes. So they kind of did that, but with like an original score.
Yeah, I feel that. I love this score. I think this score is great.
Yeah, me too.
Is this month, as a month, the best scores? So the First Omen, Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, Prometheus, and Pearl.
Yeah, I think so.
I think so as well. Will next month give it a run for its money? Because I think it wipes the floor with Werewolves Month and
yes.
Macabre May.
Yeah.
Mommy March, though, with Psycho and Carrie?
I was going to say, it doesn't... Mommy March at this point is our front runner, I think.
I think this is better.
You would.
But Mommy March isn't getting the floor wiped.
That's fair.
Is what I'm trying... Because I think Psycho is the best score we talked about, and Carrie is close. But, like, Hereditary has a good score, but not, like, any of these four.
That's fair.
And same with Evil Dead Rise.
I just think that Psycho and Carrie are so good that it's really hard for me to be objective. But, yeah, you're right. As far as, like, the full month, maybe so. So, how many versions of this one do you own?
One.
Wow.
But I have it on Blu. I mean, this is a newer movie.
I know. I'm teasing you.
What? I've never. Wait, listen. We have to ask this out because I've never been teased before.
Oh, I'm sure not.
What'd I do wrong? I thought you liked me.
I'm leaving.
Would it make a fine addition to your collection?
Yes, I would like to own this movie. It's on my list. I feel like now I have an ever-growing list ever since starting this podcast of movies that I want to own when I have, like, the space for them.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Yeah.
What is your Letterboxd review for this movie?
So I rated this one 4 stars. I said this is such a fun movie with a really touching view on the hunger to be loved and seen. Pearl's monologue at the end tugs at my heartstrings and disturbs me profoundly all in one. Which is, I think, my first serious review on Letterboxd.
Couldn't be me.
What about you?
I gave this 4.5 stars and a heart.
Heart.
In my review, Pearl. I'm a star! Me. Cool. So when are you going to show me the alligator?
All right, Jeremy, you actually watched this movie.
I
so you
actually
have
watched the movie.
Review.
4 stars. It's crazy how a goose murder can take away a whole star.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel that.
Everybody follow Jeremy on Letterboxd.
Are there any Supernatural alumni?
No, unless Jeremy found one in his own research that he was doing behind my back.
I did not.
Ha! I told you. I'm not that bad at my job.
Are there any alligators in Supernatural?
You know, probably.
It feels like there's gotta be because there's everything else.
You know what there's not in Supernatural, though?
Pearl alumni?
Mr. Goose.
Oh, too soon.
Aw.
So, I have a question for you.
Okay.
Should this prequel exist?
I said yes. I think like this is definitely one where it's kind of obvious because it was made to have a prequel, but it gives a lot of depth to the character that obviously she wouldn't have without the prequel. What about you? What do you think?
I said it last week. I said it the week before. I said the week before that. Yes, because this movie fucking rules.
It's fair.
It's not my fault we picked 4 bangers in a row.
It is your fault. You did, in fact, plan this one.
I do want to say something about this prequel that I really enjoyed.
Okay.
Is I think a lot of times, especially in horror movie, like in the horror genre, prequels are made, as Anneliese just said, to give depth to the villain of the original movie. That's a lot of times the driving force behind them even making it. I think a lot of times those prequels go out of their way to be like, but look, they're so sympathetic and they're such great people. I don't think this movie really does that.
No, it doesn't.
I don't think it even
Which is why I
tries
love it.
to do that.
Well, that's the thing is, like, I know why you love this movie because I know what your concern was going into this movie, because it's the same concern you have with the Rob Zombie Halloweens, which is that sometimes movie villains can just be bad and they don't have to have a reason to be bad. And her like murdering people doesn't really have anything to do with like her like her trauma or her connection to like needing to feel loved or anything, because she has the urge to kill before all that.
Exactly.
So
Yep.
I totally agree with you. Good point. All right, Austin, would you die?
I'm going to say no. You know why?
Why?
Because I was taught you don't put your dick in crazy.
That's wild.
She's
but
going to be
true.
like, I'm married! And be like, yep, I don't commit adultery. You know what I'm saying?
At
like,
least not with you, because you're a psycho.
So I wouldn't even be in that position, but let's just say I was in a position where I got to meet Theta.
Okay.
I would still not die because Theta would recognize me as a friend.
Oh my God, every single time.
I would feed her better than Pearl would.
That's fair.
How about you? Would you die?
No, because I'm scared of pandemics, so I would be in my house.
Hell yeah.
I would not be leaving for anything.
I would have dove in front of the pitchfork heading for Mr. Goose.
Jeremy's really upset about Mr. Goose.
As he
guys.
should be.
He's been thinking about it all day.
So you would die.
He would die.
An honorable death. I give it to you.
Austin, where can they find you on social media?
You can find me at Austin M. Torres across the social media landscape. How about you?
You can find me at Whimsawillow everywhere. It's going great out there in the world.
You can find Would You Die on any social media platform at Would You Die Show, provided we have that platform. And
You'll just have to figure it out.
follow us on YouTube. We put this podcast on there, my short films, including the Days of the Dead Best Villain nominee. We didn't win. Nominee, that's still pretty cool. The Blood Witch, that's on the Would You Die channel, as well as Spider, which won a couple awards. Ice Cream, which went to a bunch of fests. And then, yeah, we got a lot of great stuff on that show.
Yeah, and
Channel. We have a lot of great stuff on that channel.
on that channel. Also, subscribe to our Patreon. We are putting some stuff up, like, literally imminently. It might already be up. I'm not sure what you're gonna do.
Yeah, because the Patreon episode, you'll know what it is. It's Star Wars Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
That's true, yeah.
Because we're about to record that.
Like today, so.
While we're recording this, but I'm gonna post it before we post this.
Okay, good. So I wasn't sure, but yeah. So you should definitely subscribe to our Patreon. $3 a month. That's just the first of many. So I'm really looking forward to that. All right, our production is done by Jeremy Lippitt. The music you hear at the beginning and the end of every episode is composed by Josie Palmer. I think she's better than Jaws. Our visuals.
I love that.
Our visuals on our social medias are done by Allie Gibson of Crosshook Creative. Austin, you got a hint for next episode?
Should it be for the episode or should it be for the month?
Oh, you're right. It should be for our month because we're going into July.
We are. Man, it's a hot one.
That's really good.
That is a Carlos Santana reference for those of you who wouldn't know. And for next week, let's just say I know what you guys did.
I'm Anneliese Petersmark.
I'm Austin Torres. Try not to die.